Hi all, it's Lee the History Boy with a kind of spur of the moment, inspired Ruminations video series where I talk about anything from uh, films to games, talk adaptations to series, who would play who, and so on, and sequels and stuff. I mean, but it's not always about that. It's just like things that come to mind that get people potentially discussing stuff. Um, and while I was, because I've been doing a dot to dot, um, to give myself a kind of break from screen stuff. Also got on Pluto TV, got it on the Incredible Hulk channel with the late great Bill Bixby, and I did a video about him. And well, the Hulk in general, I suppose, sort of. And one of my fun facts episodes, so I'll put that in as well if you want to watch that. But yeah, the dot to dot picture I'm currently in the middle of finishing now um, is that of a lion, and it's really funny because sometimes I like to put myself in these kind of what if kind of scenarios. I think I've got a bit of a writer's kind of director's brain. I like to think so anyway. And part of that is I imagined a kind of a scenario where someone would be arguing that I shouldn't call a lion a he, even though he has a mane. It's a he, and I should just call it it because it's an animal. In this case, it's obvious. In that case, it's obvious that a lion with a mane is generally male, unless he's like a hermaphrodite or freak of nature kind of lion, genetic mistake or whatever, genetic fault. Because there are I guess you could say anomalies in nature. But it also got me thinking where it's like, are there people out there that say argue about Mother Nature and Father Time? I've never heard people argue that there should be Mother Time and Father Nature. I mean, technically there is actually. There's in the nature bit. Sorry, I'm a bit out of breath. I've got a bit of a cold going on, seasonal cold. But yeah, I'm not. Yeah, I'm not aware that there's a. I'm into mythology and all that kind of stuff, but I'm not really aware that there's a Mother Time. But people would argue that maybe there should be a Mother Time, or have like a kind of a role swap thing. With Father Nature, but saying that there kind of is already, or are fathers of nature kind of things in I think Greek mythology maybe, but definitely in some in Celtic based myths and pre-Christian and pre-Latin and Latin as well. Latin and Grecian kind of nature myths cross over into Celtic beliefs. Because, for example, there's a woodland god that that can be described as, I guess, the father of the woods, the guardian of the woods, usually dressed in sometimes he's depicted with hooves and horns, and sometimes he's depicted in wearing like the pelt of a stag and painted in wood in blue paint. And then there's there's a chiefly villagey English ancient myth called the Green Man, who can be arguably known as the father of springtime because he goes into hibernation or dies and then comes back to life, wakes up again when it's spring. So I suppose he, in a sense, is Father Nature. He's more English centralised, whereas the other one I was referring to, Cernunnos, is very broad, goes all the way from Ireland to even like the woods of Belgium. So like maybe the Gauls worshipped him, but he, I guess, is some kind of Father Nature type thing. But I've never heard anyone argue about, oh, there should be a Mother Time, even though there might be, as far as I know. But it just occurred to me that people probably don't argue about metaphysical things apart from maybe Mother Nature. So yeah, little ruminations thing there. So yeah, that's basically it. Alas, there is time for ruminating. Hey up, it's History Boy, and I had a sort of bout of, I don't know if you can call it bout actually, of inspiration, and this quick one, well hopefully, we've got 3 minutes and 40 seconds according to the recording, the camera of my Samsung Galaxy phone. Anyway, let's get to it. The last video I did, I'll put that in the description, the link in the description to that story. Ben 10 one. Anyway, and this is another science fiction one. Yes, Doctor Who. And I pretty much like overlooked things and people, and the underdog and certain portrayals of people. So this is one about certain villains in species. For example, I really liked, even though I wasn't a big fan of the Sixth Doctor era, I really liked the 2 Doctors with Patrick Troughton and the cannibal alien tribes. Shockeye, with that cook that wanted to eat Time Lords. Shockeye the Pulsing Grig. This is a Ruminations thing, so this is an open question series. So would you like to see him return, or would you like to see more members of his people? Whatever, I think I would like to see another. I think they're called androgons. Anyway, yeah, I'd like to see that return in future Doctor Who's on Big Finish, but preferably, in future TV series. Now that we've got, the next chapter, pretty much the next chapter of the mad man/woman with a box story with him with number 15, whatever, regenerating to number 16, who's Billy Piper. That'll be interesting, I think. When you look into the girl looking like someone else, at least with Capaldi and all that. And there's another one. I think there's a series. There's possibly a live action series. Maybe it's just a throwaway finish with Leela in the Time War. I think I'd like to see Richard Armitage, Thor and Hogan, reprise his role as the incarnation of glass of one, like before, tin for gold. In fact, I'd love to see both of them. That'd be interesting. Have them maybe interact. I don't know. Anyway, would you like to see those versions of Barcelona return, and or would you like to see an Andrew Gunn, maybe Shockeye, maybe not, return in future series? And alas, there is time for ruminating. Alright, so it's History Boy here. Been doing some work and this and that, and been trying to keep the railroad tracks of inspiration going. And so to cap off the day, one that's been on my mind quite a bit, in terms of, well, Ruminations episodes, which I've been ruminating, hence the title, is Tekken 2. Specifically, a remake of Tekken 2. Now, it seems that as far as the Tekken fan community, so to speak, goes, excuse me, most of the remakes that they've wanted, and I sort of agree. Like Tekken 3, for example, would be a good one. But then we got Tekken Bloodline, which is, I mean, it's not exactly the same, but you know. But then Tekken, the first game, which I kind of disagree with a little bit. It's like we've pretty much covered all we need to cover story wise. Enough in the first Tekken, maybe, but I mean, I basically half agree and half disagree. But one Tekken, one of the you know let's say the PS1 trilogy, because that's what they are. The PS1 trilogy, Sony PS1 trilogy of the 90s Tekken games. Of course, Tekken 3 is in that category because that came out in, well, the console release came out in 1998. And the arcade was in 97-ish, for example, so it counts, even though it's, based 19 years after the second game. But that's the whole thing with time skips in video games, TV, films, etc. But yeah, I'm digressing kind of a bit. So yeah, this is just kind of a main discussion of what would you like to see in, those of you out there that may be fellow Tekken fans, some, those of my subscribers out there, or those of you who have yet to subscribe but are coming across this video because algorithms, God knows what they do, algorithms, but damned if I know, as they used to say in the piratey days. Well, whatever. I'm just talking a bit of twaddle to give this a bit of runtime so it isn't a short, hopefully. Actually, no, it doesn't really matter if it is or it isn't. But I prefer that my videos aren't shorts. But then again, I get the most views on a lot of shorts. It goes back and forth a little bit. It's a bit like, why do things happen the way they do sometimes? But yeah, I think for example, me, what I'd like to see in a Tekken 2 remake is actual, because they had like rival battles and sub bosses in you know in, for example, um the first Tekken and Tekken 2. I mean, they had sub bosses in 3 technically, but those were like extra characters you could unlock, like Julian, Heihachi, and Kuma and Panda and Gunjack, all those people. Um, and Gon and Anna, and Gon, actually, this is actually a good point, good relevance to comparatively to toss both things in there, if that makes any sense. I'm a bit tired. Not so tired I can sleep, but it's getting there. I think it's because I've had a bit of a alert Neanderthal brain week, trying to do this and that. But enough about me, if anybody cares. I mean, people do care, but it's like, it's time of the place kind of thing. But yeah, Gon's a guest character in Tekken 3. Tekken's first guest character, actually. And so, for example, I mean, I'm not massively keen on the overabundance of guest characters, but there are certain ones that fit in. It's like, for example, in Tekken 7, I don't think Negan fit in that well. I mean, he was a fun character, but I don't know, he just didn't fit. Geese, Geese was my go-to in the guest characters, because I've never really had the chance to play the Fatal Furies or the King of Fighters, even though I am sort of a fan of them. I never played them in my childhood like I did my Tekken games. I never came across them really until later on, when I was just binging fighting game content. Samurai Showdown's a good one too, but I haven't played that either. And I aim to just like do one day a retro video game collection thing, which I just play. But yeah, speaking of King of Fighters and guest fighters, I think, and I've had this idea for a while, for example, I'm not sure if you all feel the same, but this is a Ruminations episode where you have, where people are, I encourage I encourage people to comment all the time anyway, but this might be actually a stealth, yeah, I'll call this a stealth Knights of the Debate Table episode too, come to think of it, because I encourage people to discuss, almost like on a forum, but on a video comment section, where what they would like to see in a theoretical remake of a game. And the guest character things, I think I would like to see, keeping with the King of Fighters and SNK sort of other franchises kind of fighting game characters. Like, we've already had Akuma in 7, and Geese Howard, Akuma being from Capcom, Gurki, also known as Gurki in the original Japan in Street Fighter, and Geese Howard from Fatal Fury and the King of Fighters. Oh, and the Art of Fighting 2 as well, which is a sort of a prequel in between. It's sort of, yeah, Art of Fighting 2 is a prequel to the first Fatal Fury game, or at least it used to be, and then they got kind of retconned. But that's another story, I suppose, potentially. So yeah, I'd like to see, for example, Ignis, the final boss from the King of Fighters 2001. I don't know when Tekken 2, for example, is supposed to be set. used to be a wiki saying it used to be set in the 80s, but it's probably more like the modern day when it was released. So anywhere from 1995, 1996, or even 1997. Depending on the game's story. So this for Ignis, this could be like several years before the events of the tournament he holds, for example. So he could fit in, I reckon. Just like how young Geese Howard a was the final boss or one of the bosses in, for example, the Art of Fighting 2, which is leading up to chronologically his appearance in the first Fatal Fury game with Terry Bogard and so on and so forth. Geese being the guy that killed his adopted dad. And, yeah, bit of lore there. But for example, going on with what else I'd like to see in Tekken 2, I'd like to see actual cutscenes rather than just cutting to the battle like they do in the original games, and they sort of cut that out in Tekken 7 a little bit. They rushed that. I think past Tekken 4 and 5, they sort of stopped with the interludes. I'd like to see interludes in the Tekken 2 remake, where, like for example, in that game, you had Beck and Lay and Beck and Law, Martial Law. His son being Forrest, who replaced him and debuted in three, and then was in Tekken Tag, and then his dad came back because they decided to bring the original Law back. But Law Senior had his rivalry with Beck, who's Huarang's master. So, like for example, I mean, they even have an interlude in 5 as well, if you play it as Beck in story mode, which is a little brief, but they acknowledge that the rivalry from 2 was still kind of there. So yeah, there'd be like interludes between Beck and Law, Lay and Bruce. So yeah, that's pretty much all I kind of have to say about Tekken 2. I mean, yeah, feel free to comment and like and subscribe and blah blah blah. And this has been a Ruminations episode by Liam.